Welcome to this episode of the People Dividend. I'm Mike Horne, your host, and I am absolutely thrilled to have in the virtual studio today Dr. Rob Leone. And Rob and I share something in common. He is a professor of human resources development, HR development, as am I. And his teaching and research focus is on organizational psychology and behavior. He uses a framework to help others to build sustainable systems and initiatives with his clients. He's an experienced business owner himself, brings over a decade of work in economic development. Rob Leone draws upon his background in human behavior, opportunity recognition, and relationship development while coaching and advising business owners and executives. He has over 15 years of significant hands-on experience in leadership, management, and organization development. Rob is considered a successful visionary leader in his field, focusing on sustainable and strategic performance improvement practices for individuals and organizations, helping them build effective teams and networks. And loves to fly, fish, mountain bike, travel. That's all a bonus here. I'm so glad to know all of that. So, Rob, again, welcome. Why don't you just say some words about yourself to our audience?
Hey, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. And that was a nice introduction. Thank you. I guess what am I doing and what's my gift to the world? That's where I like to start, right? And I think if we look at the history I've had in all different areas, working with different organizations, clients, students, and just people in general, my gift, my special talent is the subtleties, the nuances that I kind of recognize as it relates to systems and leadership and practices, right? So people often talk about things in very general, sweeping notions, right? Like micromanagement's bad, autonomy's good, and we go down these paths of trying to embrace those sweeping generalizations, and I endorse a lot of the beliefs behind that, but I also say let's pause for a moment because maybe we need to revisit what we're talking about here, because there might be some more truth and accuracy in some of the space between those statements, and that helps us determine fit and alignment with people. And I'm not just talking about clients, I'm talking about people in general, right? We're coming off the heels of a political landscape that's quite polarized in our country. And the best thing we could do right now is seek to understand people better, as opposed to just keeping things as generalizations. And so that's a little bit about what I bring to my student experience at the university, and I try to bring to my family experience, and then also my friends and clients' experiences.
Oh, that's great, Robin. We'll talk more about your business. As I think about what you've just said, I think about the three services that I offer to my clients, as sort of separating my teaching life out at Golden Gate University, my program administrator life there, and really focusing on my coaching and consulting clients. Three things. First is bespoke, and this is what you reminded me of. It's really bespoke executive development for those who are founders, owners, or in the C-suite today. And that usually happens in 3, 6, or 12-month increments. So it's bespoke coaching, perhaps focused on some of those micro behaviors that you addressed. The second thing I'll offer to my client organizations is in leadership development. And this comes in all shapes and flavors, but it's usually some sort of cohort program that will meet for 6 to 18 months. And my clients have had a lot of success in that. And the third thing I do is I leverage my expertise in organization development to help clients achieve their organization development objectives. Recently, I completed the redesign of research and development organization in a major medical device company, helped a news chief executive on board with his team. So I think about, my work in affecting behavioral change and affecting the kind of improvements that my successful clients want to make, really in those three categories. Executive coaching, or coaching people who are aspirants to the C-suite, leadership development programs, and then third, these organization development interventions. So talk to me about what you're doing at
Yeah.
Black River.
Yeah, so you actually put it into three nice, clean buckets, much better than I do. I'm kind of all over the place, right? So,
Well, that's why I was offering
our
that framework. I
yeah,
was listening to
yeah,
you.
yeah. So, and let me tell you why. So, I follow the three buckets. Your first bucket is a little bit different than mine. I spend
Uh-huh.
less time coaching and more times in an advising role.
Yeah.
And so, but the other two are right in line with what we do, as well as I do high impact or high stakes facilitation, strategic planning, facilitation pieces like that. Basically, what happens is our clients have been referral based, real strong referral based. And what they often do is they come in and they say, I want you to do what you did with that other group over there.
Uh-huh.
And or I want Angie to come here and do this. And I'll say, yeah, that sounds great. Let's have a conversation. And we try to do a really quick deep dive to determine really, is this what they need? Is this what they're looking for? Because it's always easy to sell something when someone's asking for it. But I want this to be an investment for them, not an expense. So what we do is we start with a quick deep dive in terms of what are their pain points and their challenges and why they think that solution is well fit for them. And it's usually during that discovery call that we identify that there's much more to this. As you know, there always is, right? There's always much more to a situation than, say, a leader or staff member recognizes because of the proximity to it, right? And so we start to unpack that and then determine what actually would be in their best interest according to what they're interested in. And that's where your three buckets come in nicely, because in many groups, it's a partnership, right? It's not just to come in and get it done, which they were initially proposing. It's a partnership to move forward to ultimately ultimately resolve those things that we've identified, right? And for some instances, it is academies, boot camps, things like that to upskill people like you said, a couple months up to a couple years. In other instances, it's working with key stakeholders in terms of upskilling them individually, privately in those coaching and advising calls. And then other instances, it's intervention design, right? And investigation and diagnosis so that we can determine what it is they need. And right to you, the point that you made around the language of to complete behavioral change, right? What I learned a long time ago when I finished my PhD, I was really good at designing interventions. But what I recognized was that there was a lack of stickiness to even the best interventions. And what it caused me to do is to step back and to spend more time in the work psychology realm and the research of work psychology to determine what is it that's getting in the way of these processes that are great, that organizations all around the world are building. And we think the process is good, so it should work, but the variable are the people, and kind hearts, good-hearted people just needing different things at different points of time because of things occurring in their life as well as their work life and the dynamics tied to that. So we aim to partner, and we aim to respond based on what they need, and we do have a wide service bench based on that and based on the number of years we've been doing this. But if it's something outside of our service offering, I want to know who else is out there so that I could reach out to them. So if it's someone wants something that's more aligned with you, Mike, I'm going to be on the phone calling you and say, Mike, can I make an intro for you and this company, because I think you're a much better fit than I am. So that's kind of how we approach it. It's a little bit more haphazard. The nature of it is, if it's fun and it's interesting, we definitely want to do it, and we want to learn in the experience as well as offer great experiences for those people we're partnering with.
One of the things, Rob Leon, that you mentioned was stickiness, creating
Yeah.
sticky. And I'd encourage listeners to go back a few episodes and find the episode with Andy Gorham, who is the sticky guy, the stickiness guy, who has a number of novel approaches to bringing stickiness to organizations. So as you're searching for that and looking back for that particular episode with Andy Gorham on the People Dividend, the stickiness guy, be sure to drop a comment or a like on Apple or Spotify or wherever it is that you listen, or find it as well at the Mike-Horne.com website. I think of what I bring now to my work, Rob, is a much more biased approach as opposed to, or certainly I've become clearer about my values and the agency I want to exercise to shape those values in my coaching and consulting relationships. I mean, it was a lot of progress, I think a big progression from my first book, Integrity by Design, Working and Living Authentically, to what's available now on Amazon in any format that you would love, whether you want to hear it as an Audible or read it in paper or get it on your Kindle. The People Dividend, same as the podcast, Leadership Strategies for Unlocking Employee Potential. And what I do in this book is talk about dignity and kindness and respect and civility, and how these enduring humanistic values present a unique opportunity to shape the AI age of management, to shape people who will rely more on gig economies and be working, varied schedules, a reduced work week, a 4-day work week. So it's really these principles that are part and parcel of the People Dividend, these specific strategies for unlocking potential, so that we can create these places, however they're structured, where people bring their best and do their best.
Yeah, and that sounds very akin to how we look at this, right? We want to create a space. We want to drive the organizational goals forward, hit those targets, but not at the expense of the individuals. We work with organizations to understand how to accomplish this together, right? So our ambition, and we align this with the leadership, is that we want people at the end of the day to go home with their fuel tanks, their internal energy wells, half full still, with enough energy to go home and do the things they want to do. And that, whether that is because they want to go on and volunteer somewhere else that evening, or they want to be present and engaged with their family and friends, or they want to get to the gym, right? We've seen too often that organizations are pulling the energy out of people at the benefit of the organization, at the detriment of the individual. And they're giving so much time to the organization and the profit motives or the missions of the organization, that they're really leaving with little in hand at the end of the day, and looking forward to a weekend only just to refresh enough to get back at it again on Monday. And so what we try to do is we try to strike that balance, and we do it in a way where we start with a very foundational framework of normalizing and establishing a common lexicon of the culture of the organization, so that we understand how people communicate, what are behaviors, what are behavioral preferences, tendencies, motives, values, things like that, in a manner that they can share the language around it, as well as begin to start to develop some self-sufficiency in terms of connecting with each other at a deeper level. And then from there, we take it in the direction where they want to go, whether that's building strategy, and we'll go there. But we're always starting up a little bit earlier with building those connections, because at the end of the day, those are the things that make the difference for people. It's one of the basic psychological needs, as well as it's if we could foster trust and commitment among employees, it makes it that much easier for people to have difficult conversations in the workplace. And we need to have those difficult conversations, whether they're accountability conversations, feedback conversations, or just dissenting around creative thoughts and ideas, so that we bring the best product forward.
And then in that regard, do you use a lot of assessment technique or assessment instruments? I mean, I think about in my work, if a board of directors, for example, engages me to work with their founder, CEO, or someone else in the executive ranks, there's often a matter of executive assessment that I will engage in. And it usually comes at the wrong time, because it usually comes at some sort of crisis moment. Or where the number of views of the world have collided. So it's, but still it provides for me, and I think particularly for a board, a subcommittee of the board, the personnel committee or the people committee, to have a way to understand what's at stake in the executive team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, based on the appetite of the organization and their ambitions, we've done it right from entry level. We do it as a part of an onboarding process for new hires, all the way through to bringing the directors in. And actually, part of their strategy session is preceded with the use of the assessments we're using in that
I see.
organization, so that
Hmm.
they have an appreciation for what their people are experiencing also. Not to mention, and you know this, the benefit of the assessment is really to enhance the quality of connection, right, and rapport. And when we do this prior to going into a strategy session or facilitation session, it helps levels the playing ground in some instances, and it helps foster some healthy rules for those discussions.
Sometimes assessment's blown up on me. Either it hasn't been well positioned,
Yeah.
or there's a lot of defensiveness, or there is a lack of preparation and reception to feedback. So many variables at times can affect feedback, making it very important to create the right kind of environment for your clients to succeed if you're using assessment in larger than a one-on-one setting.
Absolutely. And we see that, we have to be mindful of that because we do a lot of large group
That's
assessments.
what it was
And
sounding like, right?
yeah, and of course you have in most instances, the vast majority of the time, that leader is doing their own self work, right? They're learning about emotional intelligence. They've read about it. They want to learn more. They see some of our assessments prior to rolling it out, and they're like, "This is really good. I love this." And then they just send it out to the staff and say, "Hey, we're going to meet in 2 months, and you need to complete this before that." So we've learned our lessons about making sure that we really set them up to be successful with the messaging, because it is, you just never know how people are going to respond. And I understand it. When you're not familiar with something, you kind of wonder, what are they going to do with this? And we get messages probably every quarter directly to us saying, what are you going to do with my information, and will this be used against me? And the answer is always no. This is for you. This is for you to keep. There's no weight in these assessments. The language is neutral. It's our human tendencies to actually get offended. On one of my assessments, it calls me out as being nitpicky, very detail oriented. So that could rub me the wrong way, but I have to roll with it. It is what it is, and I am what I am, I guess. So, in the fine words of Popeye. So yeah, we've
Uh,
had great experience with them.
oh, that's great. And how are you using them? How are you using these assessment techniques?
Sure. Sure. So typically, what happens, like I mentioned, referral based. So they say, hey, look, I saw what you did with this other group. We want to use those tools also. And so assessments have a sticker price to them that make them prohibitive to some people, right? Or to some entire organizations. So typically, the vast majority of the people we work with, we start with the leadership crust of the organization, and we administer them, and we do our workshops and debriefs and follow on coaching depending on what they need. And then for most organizations, because resources are always a factor, we then talk about how do we strategically roll this out over time. And we then look at divisions, we look at the verticals and determine who needs these things as a priority. Are they high performers that this can take them to the next level, or are they people that would really benefit from having a better understanding of communication preferences, tactics, stuff like that within those divisions, so that we could start to address some of the performance things they're seeing. And then our highest success situations are when they go ahead and they budget for these and they adopt them for all new hires, and we can use them on the front end as selection criteria in terms of fit, because fit is an extremely important concept, both cultural and position role fit. So we have been doing that with organizations. We build a benchmark, but then in other organizations, they just administer it to the finalists that they hire, and it's a part of their onboarding process. And in those instances, we work with those organizations to help refine their onboarding process to be um, more culturally integrated, so that they're continuing to develop that cultural commitment to better understanding each other, humanistic and human-centered practices, and using the assessment as the kind of starting it off right, getting it off the ground, even adjacent to when they're going through the handbooks and all those other things that we find organizations include benefits in those onboarding sessions that might not be the best, most relevant pieces of information to welcome someone new to a new organization.
Well, there's certainly a lot of information there. I mean, it sounds like, quite a bit. And what people do with that information.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I mentioned, we're trying to get to this point where we're working ourselves out of the job, that they become self-sufficient and they learn how to use these tools as well as the tools that we've designed for practice to start coaching each other and troubleshooting with each other as situations arise, so that they begin to develop a deeper understanding of themselves and the people they're with and the ways to move them forward.
We've got to have a good value proposition to do all that work. To make it effective all the way around. And I think that's so important, the work that you're doing, Rob. Here we are, we're in 2025. As we progress through the first and second quarters that, we're in, what advice or guidance would you have for our listeners about, driving a meaningful 2025?
Oh, wow. The first thing I like to share often is culture is going to occur whether it's by design or default. And as we increase our self-awareness about ourselves, but also our own awareness of our systems and our people and our teams and in our systems, I think we need to ask ourselves, what is going to be our level of commitment for self-development as well as system and people development moving forward? And do we want to get out in front of this and build a culture that helps us recruit and retain talent, right? Because a brand suggests one thing, but how people talk about their experiences in that organization, and we've seen this, that it's counter to what the brand messaging is. And that's an important piece of bringing in good talent, is that the brand has to be consistent with the culture it espouses to promote. And so I would encourage people to really, as you wrap up this year, I don't know if you do these in your classes, Mike, a start, stop, and continue. A little bit of an analysis of this last year of what is it that we're going to stop doing as an individual as well as an organization and team. What is it we're going to start doing, and what is it that we're going to continue? And then make some plans around that. We do that in our own practice. We do that with our clients. We do that with our students. And it's worked out really well because it brings a level of intentionality to the work that's going to be coming forth.
And everyone can find in the show notes how to get in touch with Rob. Certainly blackriverpm.com is one of the ways. Rob, any other ways that you'd suggest that people be in touch with you? We'll have it all in the show notes.
Sure. Yeah. If you jump on that website, I think there's a quick prompt if you want to join our newsletter. Hit X if you're not interested, and then you scroll down and you'll see an email contact for us. And so by all means, reach out. We love having conversations. And find me on LinkedIn, Rob, and as you mentioned, Leon's the last name, but it's spelled like lion. So it's R-O-B and then L-I-O-N on LinkedIn. Happy to share resources. We're putting more of our resources out there and our tools, and love just to chat with people that are interested in moving in this human-centric design direction that we're spending our time in.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's been great having you as a guest on the People Dividend. And until the next episode, stay well.